First tonight, Didn't You Used to Be Satan, which contains scenes some viewers may find disturbing.
The house was a rental, brooding, tight. A brick colonial gripped by ivy in the Georgetown section of Washington, D.C. Across the street was a fringe of campus belonging to Georgetown University. To the rear, a sheer embankment plummeting steep to busy M Street and beyond, the muddy Potomac. Early on the morning of April 1st, the house was quiet. Chris McNeil was propped in bed going over her lines for the next day's filming. Reagan, her daughter, was sleeping down the hall. And asleep downstairs in a room off the pantry were the middle-aged housekeepers, Willie and Carl. At approximately 12:25 a.m., Chris glanced from her script with a frown of puzzlement. She heard rapping sounds. They were odd, muffled, profound, rhythmically clustered, alien code tapped out by a dead man.
"25 years ago, a young actress was cast in perhaps the most controversial role in film history, playing Reagan McNeil, a 12-year-old girl possessed by the devil in the film The Exorcist.
Show me Reagan and I'll loosen one of his straps.
Yeah, helping all over the place, Father.
The role was played by 13-year-old unknown Linda Blair. Audiences were sent reeling by the shocking special effects and the depiction of the battle between good and evil played out in the body of an innocent child.
What is it?
Just turn into that television light, but it's a bit hard, is it?
Nice small man. Answer me, Linda.
Linda, there are various rumours that you were affected psychologically by the film, which are no doubt untrue, but what is the situation? Did it disturb you in any way?
No, it didn't at all. No, people, I think, just, they felt that I'd have to come out kind of with problems or something, and that's how it started. I don't know. But, no, I've never had any.
You haven't?
No, I haven't.
Blair claimed to be untouched by the blasphemy, sexual acts and obscene language, but this didn't stop press speculation that she was insane or possessed. Protected from the press during the making of the film, unusually it was Blair and not the film's adult stars who became the focus of Warner Brothers publicity.
Something beyond comprehension is happening to a little girl on this street, in this house. A man has been sent for, as a last resort, to try and save her.
Mrs. Blair, I wanted to ask you if you yourself have received any criticism at all for letting Linda do the role.
So far I haven't. I'm sure a lot of parents might feel that they would prefer their child didn't do it, but I never felt that way. My husband never felt that way. We think that it was done in very good taste, and she was always in the best of company. Everybody was beautiful inside and out, and they treated everyone with the most respect. It was a great...
That's lovely. That is lovely.
When The Exorcist was in manuscript form, my 13-year-old daughter wanted to read it. She kept hounding me, and finally I gave her a copy of it, but I had blue penciled, a third of it. It couldn't be read. Because, well, look at the shocking incidents in the film. Think about the language in the film. Think about just the scene of the masturbation with the crucifix. My God. So I I really never envisioned that a real, live, normal 12-year-old girl would be cast in the role. I didn't think any kid could perform it.
All right, let's see what to do. Keep away! The sour is mine.
Fuck me!
Fuck me!
Fuck me!
We did have a closed set policy. I did not establish that policy, but in retrospect, the film was so difficult to accomplish. I think there was a part of both Bill Friedkin and myself that wasn't sure we were going to be able to bring this off, that it was actually doable. And of course, there was protecting Linda Blair.
Now, when you and as Linda pointed out, you and Mr. Friedkin had discussions, the three of you together. What kinds of things did you talk about? What were some of the things you wanted to know the answers to?
Well, he just explained to us what he had in mind for filming, because he knew that we were interested in just exactly what this sick child was going to have to do, and he explained to us that everything was going to be done in good taste, and we certainly think that he did a great job. We had faith and trust in him.
I recall that with regard to the masturbation scene, I had indicated in the script that we would see nothing below the waist and that the crucifix would come up with blood on it. And I haven't seen the film in a long time, but I think that's the way it is, isn't it? I believe it is. And he shot it wonderfully well, and I'm quite happy with it. Yeah. Yeah, he did all you could do with that within the bounds of decency. And, I mean, why is the scene there to begin with in the film or in the novel? Well, I had come to a point in the novel where I needed an event so horrific that it would drive this woman who was an atheist into the arms of Jesuit priests, help her daughter. And I tried to presume that there was something powerful and demonic inhabiting the body of this girl. And what is the worst possible thing I could think of to happen? And that was the worst thing that I could think of.
Fuck you! Liam, fuck you!
During the making of the film, I mean, she was asked to do some things that were quite graphic for a young girl. Now, there was a double for some of the most difficult things, but Linda did do a lot. She did most of it. I think Billy Friedkin actually timed the amount of time that the double was on the screen, and it really came to 8 seconds. So Linda really did it.
Director William Friedkin had banned press from the set in order to conceal the revolutionary special effects and makeup. But over schedule and over budget, he began a campaign of misinformation about the filming to cover for the delays. He claimed in interviews that strange double images of Linda Blair appeared on the film. Friedkin's allegations of unusual happenings and mishaps on set laid the foundation for the series of bizarre stories which later grew up around Linda Blair.
Did you hear that, Idaho? See you at the ranch.
I don't know if Linda told you this, but I was just picturing her in the makeup room every day because she had a very long makeup process. And to entertain her, they used to put a television set behind her on the wall so she could look in the mirror and see it. So she was always watching the Beverly Hillbillies or something during the day while this horrible makeup was being put on her and this frightening face, and there would be this little girl's giggle coming out as she's watching TV shows. So it didn't seem to me that the troubles that Linda later went through were caused by the making of the film. She seemed fine during the making of the film. You know, I thought that would be the big problem. as it turned out, that was nothing compared to what followed after the film was released.
On Boxing Day 1973, The Exorcist was greeted by a wave of hysteria with reports of fainting, vomiting, heart attacks and at least one miscarriage. In Pittsburgh and Toronto, it was claimed that several people had been committed to mental asylums after seeing the film. In Britain and Germany, it was blamed for suicides and even used as a defence by murderer Nicholas Bell, who pleaded that the film had left him possessed. Evangelist Billy Graham stated that there was evil inherent in its very celluloid.
The second time we've seen it, we still can't hack it. No.
All right.
I'm not going back in there. I can't even think. I can't even talk. I don't like it in Spanish or English or whatever. I just couldn't take it. I'm going to stay out here for the rest of the movie.
You're not going to go back?
No, I'm too scared. I never get scared. I am too scared.
When I first saw The Exorcist myself and saw the whole film put together and realized everything that we had done, all the hard work, I cried. And they gave me a standing ovation in the theater. But the outside world was yet a different thing. I would be in a supermarket or in a clothing store or somewhere public and immediately people knew. I mean, it wasn't like I couldn't go anywhere. If there was a crowd, I ran the other way. But I had to learn this the hard way. People would literally look at me and just about come out of their skin. And it was a very strange position to be in. And therefore you don't go out publicly. The problem was that people couldn't separate the film from the person. People questioned if I was the devil. I mean, I really scared people.
Ironically, whilst being condemned by the religious right, the film sparked a rush to confession. Catholic churches across the states reported increased attendance and a dramatic upsurge in exorcisms. Friedkin had touched a nerve. His depiction of evil in an everyday setting gave the film an extraordinary power. So convincing was the film's demonic aura that even members of the cast came to believe in the curse of the exorcist.
Well, I don't know if it was a jinx, really, but there were a lot of strange happenings that went on during the course of the film. I mean, we were playing with some heavy material. I mean, you don't fool around with that kind of material without it manifesting in some way. There were many deaths on the film. The actor who played the director of the film completed his shooting and died. Max von Sydow's, I think his brother, died in the course of the film. Linda's grandfather died. The assistant cameraman's wife had a baby who died. The man who refrigerated the set died. The janitor who took care of the building was shot and killed. I recall there were 9 deaths in the course of the filming, which is an incredible number. We had a lot of priests around saying prayers, sprinkling holy water all over the place. It was scary.
They tried to send me on an international tour, and I was so bombarded by the press. That scared the heck out of me. You know, I went to Australia, I went to Japan. Japan was probably the most frightening because I have no idea how this works, but they literally chased me down the streets like I was one of the Beatles. You're 15 years old. You have no idea. And everywhere you look, I mean, they had my eyes on billboards, but they would change color. They would go from brown to green, to brown to green. I mean, it's quite something to look around and it says you, and you're like, ah! But I was like, what kind of people are out in the world? You don't want to go. You don't. So I found safety, you know, with riding the horses and doing other things. But who wanted to go out in public with all that going on? It was crazy.
Linda and I didn't really see each other after the film opened, so I only read in the newspaper about what happened to her. As a matter of fact, I didn't see Linda again for several years. On the last day of shooting, I had worn a bracelet in the film with a horseshoe on it because I had the idea that I wanted my character, Chris McNeil, to be poorly armed to fight the devil, so I had this little horseshoe. And on the last day of shooting, when we finished shooting, I gave the bracelet to Linda, and I didn't see her again for several years. And then we saw each other on an airplane going to Los Angeles, and she was wearing the bracelet, and I was so touched that that she was still wearing it. And that was really the only time I saw her. So I wasn't aware of all of the difficulty to that extent that she had to go into hiding. I didn't know that.
Blair's promotional job completed, the studio was no longer on hand to protect her, and Linda was plunged into a life on the run. Famous for playing the devil, she became the focus of the public's projections and attracted the unwelcome attention of fanatics and religious zealots.
I received some very serious death threats when I was 15 and 18. And I always felt that by talking about it, that it would just raise somebody else to want to try something like that, and that's why I never talked about it. First of all, anybody that's sick enough to take the time to do what people do in either stalking somebody or sending letters and have an intent to do bodily harm to somebody or something, it's a very sad state of mind, but the fact is that it is part of the world. And I think that for a parent that's got to be an incredibly difficult thing to go through. That your child is, and I know my dad's friends were very wonderful and helped to supply shelter. I was hidden out in Vermont, Connecticut, New Jersey. So I think that's really one of the main reasons I never had a child. I was terrified that somebody would kidnap it. When you see that side of mankind, That's why I always say I've seen the best and the worst of man. And I've lived under that. And it's certainly something that will affect your life.
Such was public belief in the film that an entire mythology grew up around Linda. Stories persisted that her parents had made a pact with the devil, that her mother had been struck by lightning and her father struck dumb. Tales of Linda committing suicide or going insane also became common currency.
I never heard any of those crazy stories about terrible things happening to Linda Blair or her mother or people in her family. I did hear, let's see, I heard that I had a child who was born without eyes. Some mutual friend of ours picked that up in the ladies' room in Beverly Hills somewhere. That I had a room in my basement where I said Black Mass. Those are the two that vividly swim to the forefront of my mind here. But no, I'd actually never heard anything about Linda in that context. But the human imagination.
Linda Blair, star of The Exorcist, was arrested today at her home in Wilton, Connecticut. The 18-year-old Miss Blair, dressed in black, was arraigned later with 31 others on a charge of conspiracy to deal in cocaine.
Blair's arrest in 1977 for conspiracy to supply cocaine effectively destroyed her mainstream career. Following The Exorcist, she was briefly one of America's highest-paid television actresses. Sentenced to 3 years community service, Blair maintains her innocence and believes that she was singled out because of her Exorcist notoriety. The only avenue left open to Linda was B-movies and horror films, of which she has made more than 20.
I have an unusual life and an unusual career, and I realize that. So it's very difficult for me to advise somebody else when I know that my life isn't normal, meaning The Exorcist wasn't a normal project. To be launched into that kind of international fame at such a young age, that's not normal. Here it is 20-something years later, and people will immediately recall where they were, what happened, the effect, whether they slept with the light on in their parents' room, with their relative, whatever the case may be. And almost everybody that I meet will tell me a story. So to be a person that can bring that out of somebody, it's an unusual position to be in. And it's certainly better now that time has passed and people can talk to me instead of reacting. So it's much more comfortable now.
I did give a thought or two to what effect the film would have upon Linda after the filming was over. And it was terra incognita to me. I just had no idea what effect it might have. She was taking it all so well and so in such a healthy way during the filming that I more or less dismissed my qualms. But I thought, I did wonder, what is she going to do after this? Is she going to act again? She was not an actress originally. She was a model. Will she act again? Will she go back to her